Welcome everyone to the Universal Peace Federation. My name is Ray Lapalkin, and I'd like to begin by reading a little bit about the Universal Peace Federation. It's a global network of individuals and organizations dedicated to building a world of peace in which everyone can live in freedom, harmony, cooperation, and prosperity. There are many critical challenges facing our world at this time, from poverty and climate change to conflict and inequality. At the same time, the rise of civil society initiatives and the expansion of Track 2 diplomatic efforts involving people-to-people relations provides new dynamics that can complement and support the work of governments in the search for solutions to our world's most pressing problems. The Universal Peace Federation has developed a strong track record of accomplishment. Our commitment to service, partnership, and cooperation are hallmarks of our work. Through forums, seminars, conferences, service programs, and interfaith peace initiatives, UPF is building a global network of peace builders to contribute to a world of sustainable peace in which everyone can live in freedom, harmony, cooperation, and prosperity. And our three kind of mantras, you might say, are interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So the title of our program today is The Weight of Words, the Media's Role in Religious Freedom. So like all freedoms that are needed, freedom of speech, freedom of religion is really a necessity in any kind of a country or nation. Otherwise, of course, totalitarian regimes can come in and pretty much control the nation without the input from the citizens. So our program today, the first presenter that we'll be doing, this is actually part one of a three-part series, and our presenter today is Professor Joel Campbell. He's Associate Professor at Brigham Young School of Communication. And his topic today, he'll be speaking on the relationship between religion and the media, or religion and journalism. So let's watch the video. Please enjoy.
Religious freedom and the media. The International Media Association for Peace strives to be an open forum in which journalists and scholars can discuss freely and promote the defense of human dignity by promoting universal values, leading to mutual prosperity and peaceful coexistence in our global community of nations. And our theme today will be the weight of words. What is the media's role in preserving religious freedom? Those who pursue a career in journalism often do so because they believe their work contributes to the betterment of society. The same could be said of those who join spiritual religious communities as well. However, research shows that media representation of religious communities is often negative, or even worse, derisive. What are the implications of religious representation in the media, both culturally and politically, and why does it matter for religious freedom? So some of the topics we'll be exploring today are how religious issues are dealt with in the media, what can be done to educate members of the media on issues of religious freedom, and thirdly, how to overcome anti-religious bias in the media. And joining us as panelists in this month's IMAP webinar is Professor Joel Campbell from the Brigham Young University School of Communications, Mr. Bobby Ross, Junior Editor for the Christian Chronicle, and Ms. Nancy Jubb, Media Spokesperson for the Family Federation for World Peace and Communication. Our moderator today is Mr. Hans Moyer. Hans' family escaped from communist regime in East Germany in 1960. His family emigrated from West Germany to the US in 1963, and Hans has often commented that his remembrance of America of his youth is a place where neighbors treated each other, extended family, with love and kindness. Hans has been active in the unification movement for over 40 years now, and he currently serves as the Executive Director for the Universal Peace Federation in Pennsylvania and is coordinator for International Media Association for Peace here in the United States of America. He's the parent of 3 adult children and the grandparent of 1 granddaughter. Welcome, Hans.
You're muted.
Thank you, Ray, and welcome everyone. We have a wonderful program prepared for you today, and I'm going to introduce our first presenter. Professor Joel Campbell He's associate professor at Brigham Young University School of Communications since 2002. He holds a master's degree from Ohio State University. He teaches communications studies and journalism courses. He actively researches media and religion, media ethics, and law and freedom of information issues. His publications include Mitt Romney's Religion, a 5-factor model for analysis of media representation of Mormon identity. Also, Artemis Ward, The Forgotten Influence of the Genial Showman's Mormon Lecture on Public Opinion of Mormons in the United States and Great Britain. And the third publication, Baptism of Fire, a comparative analysis of media coverage of the Latter-day Saints Church practice of proxy baptism. His title today for his presentation is Moving from Distrust to Cooperative Engagement. Professor Campbell, the class is ready for you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Let's see here. Can you see
It's loading, yeah.
Okay. Let me just try it one more time. For some reason, it wasn't sharing it quite the way I wanted to. All right. So as I've talked about this idea of engagement, I'm kind of subtitling it also as resetting the relationship. As I thought about what's going on in the world with media and with religion, and I wanted to maybe think maybe there's a chance here to talk about resetting. By the way, you're welcome to access these slides at that bit.ly link, Reset Journal Faith there. So I had a group of students. We were studying media and religion in New York City a few years ago, and I loved this thing that was on the street in New York City, Spiritual Help 5 cents. So I'm going to say that we all need some help, journalists, spokespeople, and the public. And perhaps we're not quite in the mode of having journalists all agree that the idea of religious freedom may be foreign to some or misunderstood. So that's what I want to direction. So here are some of the issues that I think that define what's dividing us. Obviously, understanding different worldviews, replacing contempt with dignity, understand that good journalism is not devotional, confessional, promotional coverage. That often comes from the church side. I certainly work at a religious university, and some of my colleagues say, well, that journalist didn't, promote the faith. And I keep reminding them, well, it's not the journalist's job to necessarily promote my faith, but to cover it accurately. And journalists may come from a background of religious illiteracy or lack of respect for a frame that respects religious belief as a valid point of view. And I'm going to introduce some deadly sins of religion reporting that I think illustrate that in a few minutes. So first of all, I wanted to introduce this survey that came out in October of 2022 that said media coverage of religion is broken. It was a very exhaustive national global survey and had some very fascinating elements about what is going on with religion and the media. I think most telling, and there's some links on here if you want to read the whole survey. It's very lengthy and very full of information, but here's some takeaways. There is a growing gap between the coverage of religion and the needs of the faithful. There is a global desire for better coverage, understanding, and representation of faith in the media. So respondents in this survey, said that there is, we would want more accurate information about religion and belief. 53% of respondents say the media actively ignores religion as an aspect of society and culture. And then 59% of respondents believe that it's important that the news media cover a diverse set of faith and religious perspectives. And 63% say that high quality content on faith and religion is needed in their respective countries. I just found that fascinating because as Bobby Ross will know, in the age of when there's so much cutting going on in a newsroom and so much downsizing, there still is a need for people to want to read and understand religion issues. And one of the quotes that came out of this study says, many news desks shun real religious news because they believe the subject matter is too tricky to get across properly, and the fear of getting anything wrong is too great. But ignoring these stories or not reporting them fully is anti-journalism. So I often say that the First Amendment has both freedom of religion and freedom of press in it. There is a connection. We're kind of on either side of the coin. And so I think there is some connection here about the ability to report about journalism, about faith. So here's just I often do some media training for diverse groups of people. Here's just some ideas that might come across for those of you who are spokespeople in whatever environment you're in. So the cooperation between journalists and media should be based on trust and mutual respect. Hopefully that's being cultivated before the crisis. And it certainly is going to be compromised by discourteous or unethical behavior on either side. But at the same time, journalists and spokespeople often fight the same battle. So we do have common ground. To tell a client's or organization story. So what's the role of a PR spokesperson? By the way, anyone on social media these days can be a spokesperson for a particular faith. And it might be picked up by the media. But so it's very important to understand that anybody now has the ability to be a spokesperson. So I think it's critical, and this is very basic journalism 101. What's the job of a journalist, and how should religious folks understand that? It is the job to be independent, to seek truth and report it, minimize harm, be independent, be accountable, be a watchdog or check and balance. And unlike I tell my students in class, if you want to be a journalist, you stand up and say, I'm going to be independent. And if you're thinking about deciding between public relations and journalism, I go stand in front of the mirror and say 10 times, I am an advocate. I am an advocate. If you feel good about that, that's great. Then you should go be in PR. So that's kind of the different roles we have. So what are some of the issues I see as working with religion and journalists is that sometimes people cue that the idea that journalist's job may not be to defend or promote, and that we shouldn't expect that journalists will engage in what we call confessional or devotional journalism. They are going to pursue critics and critical points of view, and often your public relations is not going to change that. But the best a religious organization can hope for is that journalists provide balance and fairness in the reporting. And that's what I think you're talking about today, that you have seen with different reporting from, in particular, I think we talked about Japan in the last episode of this, some of the unfairness and inability to balance what's going on. So I'm going to go through these sins of deadly sins, and you may know that I'm going to, if you want to look at these because of time, I'm going to just slip over this really quickly. I want to go to, so my heart meat of what I wanted to say is, what are some long view solutions to work with religion and journalists? Draw on the work of professional groups trying to build ethics and religious literacy among journalists. That recent survey, I think, gives us plenty of fodder to say, hey, journalists, hey, news organizations, there's a need for religion reporting. Help to understand the needs of journalists to better report about religion. How can we help journalists? That's what I'm kind of about as a professor. Find journalists who have training in religion coverage, like a Bobby Ross, and help them with that. And help to build a reporting frame based on respect and even a appreciation for religious freedom. Unfortunately, there are some journalists who may think that religion is an invalid point of view and shouldn't be considered a valid point of view in a news story or reporting. Increase media and journalism religion courses at universities. That's what I'm doing. There's a picture of my students in front of St. John the Divine in New York. Empower interfaith groups to encourage better religion coverage locally. Reporter training at professional conferences and organizations. Join with like-minded religious groups who want fair reporting no matter the faith. academic groups interested in religion and media, religion reporting organizations, and the list goes on. I just want to show you a montage here of things that you might think about. The next slide has links to many of these. For example, here at Brigham University, we have a Religious Freedom Annual Review. Bobby Ross, who's on our panel, participated in a media track at one of those annual reviews talking about religious freedom and how we could improve reporting on religious freedom. The Religion News Association, the International Association of Religion Journalists. I'm involved with the Religion and Media Interest Group of the Association of Journalism Mass Communication. There's a Lilly Endowment for Global Religion Initiative. And I'm happy to report that in March of this year, 22nd to 24th, we're hosting about 25 Latin American journalists. We're flying in to talk about religious freedom and improving their religious reporting in Latin America. Here's some of the links and some of the things that are here. There's a lot of things we can do, I believe, to link into these. And I just leave these links here, and you certainly can access my slides to see those. Joe Grimm at Michigan State has a great project he does every semester with his students, where he creates a bias buster guides to Muslims, to Latter-day Saints, to evangelicals, to all sorts of religious groups. Those are just a wonderful project that a journalism professor is doing. Also, a government example, I have a former student of mine who's involved with the All-Party Parliamentary Group in the UK. They have created this dialogue with in the Parliament in the UK. And one of the things that I felt was really important there is there's an emphasis on education for journalists to improve their coverage. So here's a government, the UK government, getting involved in promoting this. Here's some other kinds of things. Bobby Ross, maybe you could talk more about any of these wonderful sites that kind of give criticism of media coverage of religion and faith. You might consider religion and media workshops or seminars or faith, like we're doing here at BYU with Latin American journalists. I'd just like to end with this thought. The Latter-day Saints were building a new temple in Stockholm, Sweden, several decades ago, and there was a lot of anti-Mormonism going on at that time. Krister Steindar used to be a professor at Harvard Divinity School. He held a press conference and as the Bishop of Stockholm. And Krister Steindal came out in front of the cathedral there in Stockholm and said, why are you, what's about the Mormons? What's going on with them? And he said, I have 3 rules of religious understanding. First is, when trying to understand another religion, you should always ask the adherents of that religion and not its enemies. Don't compare your best to their worst and leave room for holy envy. Now, I think for journalists, we should expect the first 2. We may not get holy envy, but I certainly do have a holy envy for many faiths. And that's what I teach my students when we go to visit many faiths, is to have that holy envy. So I realize I was kind of rushed through that a little bit, but I hope that that sets a tone about where we can maybe have a dialogue about improving journalism. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Professor Campbell. That was well done and gave us a clear view of the territory that we need to cover. And what I realized is that quality media really is a team effort.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. I just wanted to recap a few things that Professor Campbell had said. And he basically talked about issues that might divide us in the media. Number 1 was understanding different worldviews or different perspectives. So of course we have basically about 5 major world religions. So everyone has a little different perspective on their concept of a higher being. And as well as the different cultures, different languages, different interpretations. So when we see the different cultures in the world, we really need to understand some commonalities between them, because if we have these different perspectives, then that could create a lot of misunderstanding. Number 2, he stated that to understand that good journalism is not devotional or promoting that religion. In other words, a good journalist should be objective and not just promote one religion and saying this is the right one or this is the way to go, but have a very objective presentation. And the third is journalists may come from a background of religious illiteracy or lack a respect for a frame that respects religious beliefs as a valid point of view. In other words, the person may not really be a religious person and may not have that high feelings for religious thought, so they may not present religious content in such a favorable way. And then a lot of times, we talked about getting the right point of view, so a lot of times they might find someone who is not positive about a certain church or a certain religion, and they use them as an example when that person really is not a credible representative of the teachings of that church or that religion. So to understand another religion, you should ask the adherents of the religion and not the enemies. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and it's really so important again today, not just in the United States, but around the world. Religious freedom, we see it happening pretty much in every country, and where those freedoms and liberties are taken away from the people, then a lot of times totalitarian states arise. So I just wanted to go over, in conclusion, some of the core beliefs of the Universal Peace Federation. Number one, God, that we are one family created by God, our heavenly parent. Number two is spirituality. The highest qualities of the human being are spiritual and moral in nature. Number three is the family. The family is the school of love and peace. Number four is service. Living for the sake of others is the model for a peaceful society. And number five, unity. Peace comes through cooperation beyond the boundaries of ethnicity, religion, and nationalities. So if these values resonate with you, please get in touch with us, and we could talk a little bit more about the principles, a little bit more about what the UPF is doing around the world. Again, many seminars, webinars, international, bringing many people of not just religion, we're talking about religion today, but parliamentarians from around the world, academicians from around the world, business leaders from around the world, representing many different aspects of society. So please get in touch with us, and we can study this a little bit more further. And I always like to conclude by offering a complimentary copy of the biographies of our co-founders, Reverend Sun Myung Moon and his wife, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon. So our contact information is on the screen, and if you'd like a copy, please get in touch with us. So thank you for joining us today.